Thank you so much for coming. And big thanks to Adobe for making this talks happen and organizing all this today. So today, I'm going to talk about character art on Baldur's Gate 3. I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of our production and pipelines, and I'm going to dive in and give you a special demonstration about our heads production. So before I start, let me introduce myself. My name is Alena, and I'm currently an art director at Larian Studios, and I was a lead character artist on Baldur's Gate 3. I started at Larian in 2016 as a character art intern and worked my way up where I am now. So, Baldur's Gate 3. How many of you have played the game? Please raise your hands. Nice, nice, lots of hands. Very happy to see you here. So for those who haven't played, I would like to start with a trailer so that you get an idea of how the game and characters in the game look.
Ever glimpse what you're about to see. But don't be alarmed, I'm here with you. Now, open your eyes.
Chosen one.
All right. So, how to make art work? Or actually, how to make art that contributes to the overall game success. So I want everyone to think up about something that artists should have to actually make it happen. Right? Everyone's ready? You probably thought artistic skills, right? Well, of course. So artistic skills, what does it mean exactly? Well, of course, it's a skill of you making an amazing, stunning model. But it's also about direction. Because if you're a great artist, but you don't know what you're working towards, then it might actually not work out. So we started on Baldur's Gate 3 about 6 years ago. And we were a team of 5 artists. And we had quite a bumpy ride at the beginning, so it didn't quite was working out, you know. And we synced up with our senior artists, and they kind of came to a conclusion that it's not working out because probably we're not good enough. Probably we need to pour another 10,000 hours to just be there to become this like top, world-class artists to make it work. And I didn't believe it back then, and looking back, I think, I kind of was right about it. Because, like, truth be told, all 5 of us were really talented and amazing artists. So maybe, just maybe, it wasn't just about this artistic skill. Maybe there was something else that we needed to take into account to make it work. Technology. What's technology exactly? Well, for us, it means engine graphics. So if your model looking really good and you sculpted it well, you textured it well, but the rendering in your engine is not on par with it, it's not going to look that great. If the lighting is not there, it's not going to render well. Engine optimization as well is very important. If you have, again, an amazing mesh, but it doesn't run, like your game is going to crash if you're going to load it, then, again, that's not going to happen. Like, it's not going to end up in the project. Tech animation. As you all know, BG3 has a lot of cinematics, a lot of dialogues, so we needed to build up a system that actually can support it so that our characters talk and have no problem with talking, a lot. And finally, photogrammetry, right? So for us, we started using photogrammetry to achieve this next level of visual fidelity, specifically on skin and on some of the other assets. So what else? Well, of course, tools and pipelines. And tools and pipelines is very important as well, because if you don't have a proper tool set, it's going to limit you in what you can do. So let's say if you have amazing meshes, really stunning, good-looking models, you have the tech as well. But if you don't have properly set pipeline, there is actually, it can be that much number of characters that you're going to be able to support. But if you build your pipeline correctly, it can save you an insane amount of time and make your processes smooth, so you can allow larger number of content. And finally, production. So what's production exactly? Well, production is a lot of things, but essentially it is a combination of everything. It is like those key points that you need to take into account while building up your meshes, your tech, and your pipelines. So, for example, for us, we know that our development takes a lot of iterations, and things change, narrative evolves, story changes. So we need to be prepared. We need to be prepared to quickly navigate it. We need to be prepared to switch things around, to rework stuff. So everything, our meshes, our tech, and our pipeline need to support that, need to support this keynote. Another pillar for us is focusing on the game. So what does it exactly mean, focusing on the game? Well, it means that we look at our production from the player perspective. Will the player like this character? Do we need to add this customization feature to our character creation? Let's listen to the community, what it has to say. So if you focus on the game, instead of focusing on any other aspect on your artistic skills, technology, or whatever else, then it gives you more context and is going to answer lots of questions that you have throughout the production. Of course, also planning is important, focusing on ease of use and everything else. But yeah, so essentially, production is where it comes all together. Now, how do we exactly do it? So how do we go from the left image to the right image? So on the left image, you can see one of our early work in progress proof of concept characters. And then on the right, you can see how a very similar character looked at the end of the production. So there was an evolution. And the character that you see on the left is not even our first iteration. It's it took us probably a couple of months of pre-production to come to it. But obviously, we didn't stop there. We worked further and further on this, and we ended up where we ended up. So how did we do it? So we start with pre-production, and we don't start from zero. So that's important to understand. Nobody starts from zero. And we came from a Divinity Original Sin 2. And generally, Larian, we're used to work with this type of games with large number of characters, with big narrative story. So for us, DOS 2 was a baseline. And so the tool on the right, the screenshot, very old screenshot you can see, is what we started with, what we kind of inherited from DOS 2. So we already knew that that's going to be our baseline. So we're going to customize skin. We're going to customize heads, hairstyles, hair color, facial features. And we knew that we wanted to improve stuff, right? So we knew that we wanted to scale up. We had fun with this tool. It was very useful, but it wasn't enough to support a larger content game. So we knew we needed to do some changes. And we knew that we wanted to go towards more realistic direction as well. And of course, you saw the previous slide. We knew that, well, some things need to be improved with our lighting and graphics and shading and rendering. So lots of work to be done. So roughly, we ended up breaking character production into a few categories. So it is playable races, which is heads and bodies. It is hairstyles. It is armor and outfits. and it is creatures. So why did we split it like this? So it is depending on the pipeline. So like each category has some things that are unique towards the pipeline. And of course, it's also based on the skills. Because we noticed that some character artists are better at one or the other. And they start to specialize a little bit. So if a character artist lean towards more hairstyles, then they can help the other character artists to grow and develop in that field. Roughly, everyone can do every step of the pipeline and every category, but there are certain things that are unique with each category. So anyone who is familiar with the game knows how large it is and how much content we managed to produce for it. So we couldn't do it without a very specific systemic approach to modeling. So what does it mean? It means that you need to build your pipeline so you can reuse a lot of stuff, and you can assemble things on the fly from the pieces that you basically prepared. So on the left bottom screenshot, you can see an elf, tiefling, and githyanki. And some of you can spot that maybe there are some similarities. Well, that's because they use exactly the same rig. And in fact, their topology of the body, their UVs of the body are exactly the same. So, and actually, elves and tieflings also wear the exact same armor, but you probably know that. Githyanki have a unique body type. It's still the same rig, but yeah, the armor is adjusted to the figure when they wear it. But essentially, there are lots of things in common, even though when you see those characters next to each other, they still look like very unique characters. Same with the guys on the right. So that's, again, the same rig. Ta-da. So essentially, it's what we call Maelstrom rig, where we use it for creatures and playable races. And essentially, we can just combine a unique creature using this rig and a few attachments like wings, tails, horns, you name it. So essentially, you need to be able to sustain such a large production. You got to do that. You got to reuse as much as you can, and you got to build up your systems for character art to be able to support it. So this is how it looks in practice in terms of the meshes. So this is our bandit set, where it's combined from these multiple pieces, and each piece works with each other. So I can assign any type of body armor with any type of belt, with any type of shoulder pads, et cetera, et cetera. And it all comes together in our unique character editor tool that we developed for BG3. So on the left, you can see the meshes that you can assign to a character. And then on the right, you can see the colors and parameters that are exposed from the shaders of the meshes that are assigned to the character. Very versatile tool that gives us basically an opportunity to iterate on the fly, to make each and every character in the game unique, so that we can just assemble it basically like you would your player character, your player avatar, but even with a bit more advanced things. All right, so one of the other and one of the main important aspects of character customization is color. So if you want to kind of make an illusion that you have more content than you do, make it color customizable. That's basically as simple as that. And we learned it from our previous title, DOS 2, and we continued building upon it. So color customization can go from very simple to a very complex color customization. So what's a very simple one is it can be 3-channel mask, it can be ID map, gradient map, and what's more complex, well, I'm gonna make a little bit of a preview of skin shading. So, but essentially, what does it mean? It means that we need to rethink how we approach texturing. Everyone online, in all of the tutorials, in most of other titles, most of other games, people work with color. In Substance Painter, you see your materials, they have color. But if you want to customize your color, you kind of should get rid of it. So you can see the textures here, some of them, they are a bit of a grayscale, even though they still have color. You can call it a grayscale. So artists gotta switch their mentality to work now like kind of get rid of your base color, get rid of the albedo altogether. And you know how artists love it. Like, yeah, I'm sure. Great stuff. So to make it a little bit easier for them, we have, so here's a preview of like a simple approach to customizable color on our armors. So basically what happens here is that we have a simple, somewhat of a grayscale color with some highlights, with some of the color variation inside of it. And then we build up a shader in our engine that basically just multiplies color on top. Here you can see the base color. And then what we did is basically just transfer the shader to Substance Painter so that artists can finally have the preview of like what are they working on. Previously, before we could do that, we just needed to kind of work a little bit in the blind and then export our maps to the engine and then test it. So this is a simple version of it, right? So like essentially a simple one is like you still have somewhat of a base color map, you overlay it with color, and you're basically done. You get a nice preview. You can also work, like outsource your work essentially without giving like all of the tools, just basically given Substance Painter. But we didn't stop there. Because, so we kind of decided to make our lives a bit more complex from here. And we came up with a bit of a special color customization for skin. Why did we do it? Because we noticed that with a simple multiply, it kind of doesn't really work in all cases that well, especially when you increase visual fidelity, when you want to work with more realistic approach. So what's wrong with multiply is it works with like the midtones well, but if you go to like a bit of more extremes, more light tones or deeper tones, then it kind of starts to fall apart because your base color map is gonna give either too much texture detail or not enough texture detail. So what we decide to do is make a 4-channel masks and get rid of the base color altogether. Here you can see kind of a work in progress of our skin shader graph. Shout out to our graphics team and tech art team who actually come up with the mass of blending those mapped together to allow us to not only just customize skin in like conventional skin colors, but also like all colors of the rainbow that you can imagine. So it was the theory, right? So now what is gonna what does it mean in practice, right? Like to build up a head in 3D for Baldur's Gate 3 title. So for this GDC demonstration, I actually made a new Baldur's Gate 3 head, which I'm going to showcase step by step how to do that. It was a generic head. It's important to say. So what do I mean by saying it's a generic head? Well, it is a head that doesn't have any special features per se. So it's not important. It's the only thing that's important about it is that it can be used in multiple places and kind of looks like a head, right? So that's basically it. And the time limit was 2 days for me. So if there are producers in this room, don't plan 2 days for your heads. You can't do that. So we can only do that because, we really know exactly what we're doing, and we did it 100 times before. And only then you can do it in 2 days. But normally, please plan a bit more time. All right, so let's jump into ZBrush to start with and to see like a little bit of the steps of the modeling. Okay, so we start with somewhat of somewhat of the base mesh. If you want to make a head in 2 days, don't start from a sphere, just like a tip from me, right? Then you just block out quickly your features. You better have some reference prepared to know roughly what the archetype you're going for. Since it's a generic head, we are focusing on just getting it anatomically right, so we don't care much about other things. So add your eyes as soon as possible, and actually make sure that you position your eyes well, because the model kind of needs to start looking like it's looking at something. And if you work without texture, without like with a little bit of an offset on your iris or whatnot, it's going to confuse you, because when we look at people, and we look at people every day, in fact, we look in their eyes usually, so you can spot even like slight alterations of like if something is not right, it's going to look odd. So then you throw in like a little bit of a displacement map with your pore details, or you use some brushes. You adjust it further to your liking. And somewhere around the final stages, what I like doing is I like building a bit of a better preview. So I like throwing some textures, painting some brows, and also adding some supporting meshes, which are obviously reused from other characters. What I also like doing is adding a hairstyle at this stage as well. So what does it mean? It basically means that I don't do a new hairstyle every time we make a new head, but we just reuse a hairstyle from existing ones, and then to make it slightly better, you can adjust it per head to give yourself a better preview, essentially. So that's how the final high poly mesh looks for this head. So let's jump back to the next stage. All right. So next one is the low poly stage. So as I mentioned before, right, everything needs to be reused. So we use the same low poly for each head. And normally, so we snap it by hand, and I actually prefer to snap it by hand in ZBrush. It just makes things easier. But once it's done, like there is some automation that we managed to do. So here you can see our script that can first fix your neck seam in place. Then it can also add all of the supporting meshes, like eyelashes, your eyeballs, your other lashes, like tear line, all of that. And it speeds up the process really by a lot. So you just need to click a few buttons, and you're there. And on the left, you can also see our reference model. So what does it mean? It just highlights the areas that are important to keep in mind. So for example, the scalp area, we need to keep exactly the same, which also kind of influences your low poly and limits your high poly in certain regard. And then the markings are the loops that are important also to keep exactly in the same place on the head landmark features. Essentially, I'd say, so the high poly can take, starting from and up to, right? So starting from at least 6 hours and up to any number of days that you want to pour on it. I would say this one took, maybe like 8 hours, low poly and high poly in total. Next, so now we go into interesting, more complex part. So we need to build the texture, right? And as I mentioned, we are not going to use base color in a final product. So we actually use 3 main maps. There are more maps that we have, but they're a bit less important, that we extract from base color map. So what you can do is you can use any type of like painted map or photogrammetry to assemble your conventional base color map to serve you as a base for other masks that are going to be used to mix and combine into the skin color. So what are those maps? So one of the main one is what we call hemoglobin, which represents the blood vessels in the head, or your reds. Then the next one is melanin, which kind of represents just the base color, the main color of your skin, the texture of the skin. And then there is vein map, which is, technically your veins and practically your blues. Of course, like that's if we speaking about like a human colored skin, but essentially for non-human colored skin, for fantasy races, the same maps are used, and we just change the color. So like hemoglobin in case of drow are going to be like very purplish, and in case of Githyanki, it can be like offset to yellow a little bit more. Okay. So let's jump into Substance Painter and look at how the maps are combined there. Okay. So basically, from your base color map, I made the base maps for each of the textures. So how is it done? Usually, we do it in Photoshop. And I might actually show you guys a bit of a deeper dive in how to make the base ones during the expo days, like in Adobe booth session, so feel free to stop by. So this is essentially a start. So we extracted some of the hemoglobin, vein, melanin map from this base color texture, and imported it in our special shader in Substance Painter that blends skin. So it actually looks like a normal skin, but yeah, so it has all of these channels, all of these custom channels that you can preview. So let's take a look at, let's say, hemoglobin first. Essentially, so how my layer stack is composed here, we just have a smart material that follow exactly the same logic. And it starts from the base extracted map, which is hemoglobin, and then there are a few layers on top that we paint on top. So yeah, there are a few layers to evening out skin. There is a cavity. There is a bit of an enhanced lip cavity. Manual pass, so there's a lot of manual passes to make it all nice. I added a bit of more blush, enhanced lips, and added additional red spots. So that basically concludes hemoglobin map, right? So it now looks a bit more lively. Now for melanin map, it's essentially the same. So we add a little bit of ambient occlusion. We even it out, paint extra shadows, extra highlights, add a bit more definition. I think I just added like some sharpening and levels on top of it, and then some additional spots to make it a bit more convincing. So let's see how it looks now. Right, became a bit more realistic. Then our vein map. So let's go to vein. Same again. So this is just extracted map, like a base map. Then there is cavity on top. There is a manual pass. And then we just paint some extra veins. Again, a little bit of a fixed layer. Enhanced lips to get the color of the lip right. And then just extra painted veins. Then I also have a yellow in map that is a bit of a less important map generally. And it's usually generated. So it's basically a smart material on top. And so it looks like this. We don't really paint it per se. It's automatic, and what I did for this hat is I added a bit of more like painted layer. So what does this map do? It makes it a bit more saturated, essentially. So it makes it slightly more varied in a skin tone. So like if your main color, if your melanin has a certain texture, then the yellowing multiplied on top, it's gonna just add a bit more variation in your skin, which we want. So that basically it for like overall skin process. Of course, yeah, something is missing, right? So let's make this character from Harkonnen to a normal human by adding brows. Right, so, and that's that's mostly it. So you see, like there are some other layers on top, right? So we have like a cancel mask, which blue cancels a little bit the detail map that's applied in the engine, and yellow is basically canceling melanin, which for this hat is not important. But for example, if you have scars, right, like there would be scars painted on here to cancel out the skin pigmentation, essentially. What else do we have here? So, oh yeah, so we're gonna add a bit more freckles. I put this one on top because I just painted freckles, and then I basically put it in multiple channels, so both in melanin and hemoglobin to make it more convincing. That's basically about it. Oh yeah, CLIA map. So CLIA map is where my cavity is stored. That is used in the engine to build up my roughness and some other things. And then there is, of course, the facial hair and the lip mask to apply the lip color. So here you can see the parameters of our shader. So that's basically all of the color customization happens here. We like to, when we work on any head, whether it is a human head or a fantasy head, we like to keep all of the parameters the same while we work. Why? Because we need to make sure that color that is applied in the engine is going to look the same on each head. So we don't want players to go in the character creation and then pick up, I don't know, skin color 4, and then it looks one way on one character and then completely other way on another character. But essentially, if I'm starting to tweak it, right, so that's kind of how you can tweak the color. So you can like make her, any color you want, essentially. So that's just the main melanin color and melanin amount, and yeah, any of the parameters you can tweak in the same way. All right, so our texture is done. So let's see how it looks in the engine now. So back to the presentation. So here you can see live how we operate our character, our tool. So we just assemble things. So we assign the proper head, we assign proper hairstyle, and then we assign the armor this way. Here you can tweak colors, so you can pick any color you want. For skin, we obviously don't want people to tweak all of the 40 parameters that we have there. So we basically composed presets, so you can adjust presets and go from there. And finally, that's how the head looks in engine. So usually we have a test level in our, we use in-house engine where we render things. And whenever, well, these days, whenever our graphics programming team looks at the screenshots, they're always like, hey, so is it really rendered in our engine? Is it? So yes, it is. It is rendered in our engine. Yeah, it's not any other engine. So that's essentially how it looks in the final product. So from here, basically it's not the end, right? So once we made a head, we can then deploy it into the world, into BG3 universe. And that's where all of the customization features really come together. And a good generic head is the one that you can do all of these permutations with. So you can, you need to be able to make it into a really creepy cultist, into a nice lady with all kinds of, character features. Here is, you can see a staring sister somewhere here. So. So essentially, one head like that can give you up to 30 or 40 NPCs. So that's basically how we managed to make, well, our tools say that we have 4,000 characters in Baldur's Gate 3, which is an insane number. I'm not sure if I can believe it or not, but that's how the machine, that's how a robot calculated. So I guess it's correct. So obviously, nobody can physically ever make 4,000 unique characters by a conventional approach of modeling, but with some smart approach to tools and building up a proper pipeline, you're actually able to make it happen. And that's pretty much it. And we can jump to a Q&A now.
Oh, hi. My name is York. I want to ask a question. I really love Baldur's Gate, and I want to ask how do different teams like concept artists and 3D models, animators in your team collaborate during the character production process? How do you ensure communication and coordination among all parties during the creative process?
Mm-hmm. So how did we collaborate between the teams, essentially,
Yeah.
concept artists, 3D modelers, etc.? Well, technically, concept artists provide us like a directional base for our meshes. And once they work on their stuff, we actually give them feedback if that's going to work in 3D or not. And because both concept artists and 3D artists are essentially still artists, right? So 3D artists are not like just a model in tools for concept artists and vice versa. Then they just talk to each other, and then we try to make sure that everyone is on board and everyone approves of the concept that's being made. And then when it's moved to 3D, same thing happens, right? So 3D modeler posts their progress, and then kind of everyone is free to comment. What's very important to realize for artists is that feedback, there is no bad feedback, right? So we usually devastate when we hear feedback, oh no, somebody doesn't like my mesh, end of the world. But we need to overcome this, and we need to get used to feedback. So that's what we're trying to establish in our team. So we try to kind of make the feedback flow happen. And yeah, that's the way we coordinate things. And then once the modeler is done, then it continues to like 3D rigging and animators. Yeah, if they're unhappy, then, well, we'll need to change things to make them happy. So.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. You are the best.
Thank you.
Hello? Oh, okay. So you mentioned earlier about like the next seams. How did you like minimize the amount of next seam issues that you had? Because I imagine with like working with generic heads and generic bodies at the same time, being like designed separately, that would be like a major like roadblock.
Yeah. So we have an X seam smart material per race. And we basically just copy and paste it on every character. So all of the character within the race gender has this exactly same neck seam. And first, we just created it with just like a blurred material that was like a flat color, essentially, just a flat color within all of the like masks that we have. But then we used UDIMs to blend it. So we made neck seams in UDIMs. My favorite brush is a dirt brush in Substance Painter. That's amazing. So you like add some automatic base first, and then you just go in with dirt brush like a couple of times, and then you grate, and then you just copy it, and then you paste it on all of the characters ever, and you don't have to bother about the next seam ever again.
Thank you so much. The Absolute was very happy for me asking the question.
Hi, Alena. Thank you for the game. Like everyone else here, I love it. I was wondering, given the burden of work you've demonstrated here, do you have any personal feelings about things like AI and NVIDIA ACE? Do you see these things as really improving your productivity? Do you see them as a threat?
I don't really see AI as a threat, maybe because it might not be there yet to replace anything in our production. I do think that if used right, it can be a tool. Right, so during the keynotes here, like in the morning, Substance Painter guys presented some of the AI tools, how they used it to help artists rather than to replace them. So I really dislike the narrative of like replacing anyone, but I do like the idea of AI helping us solve like our day-to-day problems. So I think that moving forward, it's a technology that's going to stay. But it's up to us to make sure that we use it in an ethical way, and we use it as a tool, essentially, that help us rather than throw some 2D images in a mixer and see what comes out.
Hey, first off, thank you so much for that. That was incredible. I was just wondering, for creatures, is that like a similar workflow, and what are like some big differences in that workflow?
So for creatures, the workflow is very conventional, or much more conventional than for other things. So creatures can be unique, and most of the time they are. So they have a unique rig, which kind of frees up quite a bit of things that we can do with them. However, we like to also use color customization on all of our creatures. So if it's, for example, a dog or a cat, then you can easily change color and then make it into another cat or another breed. So that's kind of frees us up a lot. Usually, again, like artists, they don't really love working without color. And whenever there is a unique creature request, I assign it to an artist, and then they come up to me and say, oh, well, can I please do it in the traditional base color approach? And then I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Well, maybe, okay, fine. It's like just one, we just need one imp. And then 3 months later, we have 40 imps. So we got to rework it anyways. So we try to make sure that everything is customizable from the get-go. And yeah, if it's a creature like, let's say, a hobgoblin, or some kind of like a minotaur, right? There's going to be a couple of them, so we better kind of think about it beforehand, or we need to rework, and nobody wants to rework.
Awesome, thank you.
Do you have any, how did you get started out in the industry? Do you have any tips for people who are just starting out?
So I started as an intern, and I graduated from DAI Hovest, that's in Belgium University. Yeah, there is actually a representative from it in the audience. Feel free to nag him, about things. So, one of the requirements, if you get a degree there, is that you have an internship for a couple of months. I think it was 4 months in a company. And yeah, for me, I just went to Larian and got an internship there. And I would recommend people doing it these days. Why? Because you're going to kind of have your foot in the industry, and it's going to be kind of harder to get rid of you, once you're there already. So yeah, that's a pro tip. Obviously, it's not impossible to just work on your portfolio and get it on par with other junior artists' portfolio. But I think it's harder than getting an internship from your school per se.
Hi, thank you so much for the talk. It was really great.
Thank you.
I'm actually curious about the clothing part, because you said everyone is doing actually everything, but everyone has the speciality. You focused on ZBrush in the head creation process. Do you have a special tool that you use for clothing creation, or is it also sculpted?
So we allow both sculpted approach and using Marvelous Designer. So I recommend using Marvelous Designer for folds, for example, but it's not gonna get you to your final high poly. So we kind of combine approaches. We're always on the lookout, and the key point here for us is just okay, so we want to get here, and then how we do it is kind of up to artists or up to the team to figure out. We have artists who are very proficient with Marvelous Designer and who are not so proficient. We have one artist who can sculpt cloth very fast, and you won't tell if it was generated or if it was sculpted. All fine by us, he can do that. So, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you for the talk, Alena. So we noticed that there are quite a few differences between the early access version and the final launch of the original characters' appearances. But some characters like Will and Mizora, I don't think they endure a lot of changes, but some characters like Shadowheart, I think she got quite some big change in the appearance design. So I want to know, what's the decision-making process to change the appearance of a launched character, and what's the risk of changing the appearance of these characters after the game is launched and played by a lot of players?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, there is no secret that artists do want to make things better constantly, right? And a lot of times, because the earlier in the production we make things, kind of like the less polished it is. So then we keep iterating, keep improving everything else, and then we look back and we were like, oh wait, but like I really want to go back and give these characters a bit more love, you know, so that they are on par with everything else that we're like can and manage to do now. Because as well, like BG3 was in production 6 years, so inevitably we were like looking back and we were like, oh no, but we gotta, you know, we gotta make it to improve it a bit more. So that's one of the big reasons for it. I'd say another reason is a little bit of a community feedback. We listen to community, and a lot of times they give us some pointers that we might not really think of. And then if those pointers kind of align with what we want to work towards, then we actually, yeah, we can change things just based on that. And maybe the final reason that the changes could happen as well are the narrative changes and kind of us like in Larian Studios looking at like what state, what appearance of character we have now, and sort of like deciding that, okay, maybe some improvements needs to be done in the view of, you know, maybe some iterations with the story has been made, or anything else at all, right? So it's like a sort of a collective decision that we reach to upgrade or pivot or like, yeah, just essentially change the appearance of an origin character or an NPC.
Thank you. Hello. So I want to say thank you for the talk. I'm a very big fan of both D&D and Baldur's Gate. But as a student, with somebody who has some limited experience with ZBrush and with Substance, and I know you said a great opportunity is to get an internship, what kind of, I guess, skills and hours should we be working on, and I guess resources would be good to get into the industry and perhaps get an internship? Mm-hmm.
So every path is unique, right? So there is no universal advice for anyone. I'd say double down on what you're good at. Mm-hmm. So if you're better with making outfits, do that. If you're lean towards making like hairstyles, do that, et cetera, et cetera. If you're more technical, really double down on like showcasing, you know, your technical skills. Maybe even like, you know, try to build up some kind of a system, character art system for it. Maybe one advice that I would give: don't try to sculpt or learn anatomy and face likenesses from the start. It's going to take time. So focus on something easier and manageable, because I see a lot of artists, they just taking up huge projects, and it's just impossible to make it work in a couple of months. So be realistic, and if something doesn't work, try something else, and see, you know, what you're better at, and stick to it, and then I think that's going to be easier.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hi. I wanted to ask, because you know you've been working on this for 6 years, is there a certain part or model that you are most proud of to be implemented in this game? I'm most proud of kind of, you know, everything that we did, basically. I really love all the models. I think, yeah, we, like everyone at the team really, you know, did their best. Of course, I have a special place for Carla in my heart. I did romance Carla, so, you know, and I made her. So yeah, I guess if you can call it a favorite, that would be it. Of course, thank you.
Hello. You mentioned earlier the landmark features that had to stay in the same place across the different heads. Did you find that that created any constraints for artistic direction?
Yeah, so it didn't. It's the landmarks are mostly just for the low poly to follow your high poly. So you basically, so your low poly is the same, but essentially, let's say loop number 3 on your lip needs to fall on the contour of the lip always. So like it's, the head can be very unique, the mouse can be in a completely different place, but it's just that loop number 3 needs to go there, you know, same with like the eye crease, same with like the mouse interior, so there are just some of those loops and landmarks that we need to keep consistent, or like there is a tip of the nose vertex that needs to like be located on the like furthest point of your nose tip, for example. So no, it didn't get us like any constraints. The only constraint that we did have is the sculpt, so we kept all the sculpts the same within the race gender, which is limited because, as you know, humans don't have exactly the same sculpts, we kind of had to rebalance the features a little bit to fit that. So that was the main constraint, I'd say.
Thank you.
Hi, very great speech, learned a lot. So this might sound like nitpicking. It's just unlike many other games that support character creations, the Baldur's Gate 3, as I recall, did not support like some minor adjustment, like distance between eyes. Is there a reason behind this decision?
Reason behind the change in character creation, can you repeat that?
Yeah, I mean, I remember in Baldur's Gate 3 we were only allowed to select from a certain set of faces, but in many other games, sports character creations, we were actually allowed to do some minor adjustments.
Sliders, yeah. Okay, got it. So the reason why we didn't really do sliders is basically because, like, back when we started, we had a lot of other things to figure out, and we were mostly focused on how to make our systems work and have this increased quality level. And for the sliders, if we would do sliders, we want to do it properly, and we just didn't really have time for it on this project. So we were mostly busy with figuring out everything else, and we don't want to give players something unfinished or something that we wouldn't be very confident with. So that was essentially us trying to give players the best thing that they can have with the production constraints that we had.
Thank you.
Thank you for a really detailed breakdown of skin recoloring. Wonder if you have a similar approach on a hair or facial hair for the recoloring.
Yeah. We do, indeed. So hair also doesn't have any color. So hair has also multiple maps that we render in XGen. I think it was also 4 maps. And then, we also basically combine the color exactly in that way. For hair, there are some other things too. So there is, for example, an ID map that randomizes the color a little bit. But there is also vertex color that we paint strands with that influence your gradient coloring, so that to have essentially your the smooth transition from one color to the other. And we also have the random vertex paint as well applied on the strands that we use for graying hair color too. So there is also no base color whatsoever for hair.
And the same with the facial hair too?
Same thing. So facial hair, and fur, basically color gets customized in exactly the same way. You can look up Unreal hair shading system. It's pretty much very similar to what we have.
Thank you.
Hello. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and experience. Going back to character rigs in creatures in general, I was wondering how was handled the modularity and also the trying to make it more optimized for biped characters that also had wings on it. Was it attached on the same merge with the same base character biped, or was it also handled as a separate creature?
It was essentially the same creature. So there are some creatures that have wings and other attachment built into them. So for example, a dragon, right, is just a creature with wings. So we never use it as a dragon without wings. But for cambions or anyone that is more bipedal, more humanoid, we try to reuse the rigs from somewhere else, and then the wings or tails or anything, they just come as attachments. And attachment is basically a mesh, and the rig is attached to your skeleton.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I was just wondering, in the clothing pipeline, you use your grayscale as base map and then multiply the colors in the engine. How do you make sure that the overall look doesn't look too dull or muddy in the colors?
Very good question. We call it a grayscale, but please don't do grayscale, right? So what you got to do is you got to think in terms of okay, I remove my main color, but there are still colors in my map. So you got to add your yellows, yellows, greens, blues, anything in your base color, but you gotta kind of remove, subtract the main color from it. So it's like this balance, essentially. I think leather is especially hard to make work like this. So then you need to make sure that there is color in your colorless texture.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello, Alena. I know it's very difficult of making a character really unique and attractive. And I would like to ask, because a little bit of detail changes could make a character a completely different creature or character. So I would like to ask about some decision making you make during making a character. Especially, I like the Astarian's wrinkle and the eyes of the Raphael, stuff like that. And I would like some tips of your making some character like that. All the details. Sarah, thank you.
Thank you. So for unique characters, the process is essentially the same, and it's usually a collaboration, right? So Astarian, for example, it wasn't made by one artist. It was a collaboration between artists usually. So somebody makes a head, somebody makes hairstyle, somebody makes an outfit. So it's kind of like that. And then the detail on top, or like the smaller detail, they also evolved a little bit over time. So we sometimes go back and then we polish things, like as I mentioned, right? So we enhance things, make things better a little bit. So that's what we did with most of them. Same with Raphael. I think he was also like, we went back and improved him, reworked him a little bit. But essentially, they still follow exactly the same pipeline that was showcased. It's just we spend a bit more time during high poly stage, we spend a bit more time during texturing stage, and there might be a bit more rework and ideation, iteration during the whole process that increase our timeline. So obviously, it's impossible to make a Astarian head in 2 days, right? So same with Raphael. So they take longer, and we pay special attention on like getting the details right to fit with the narrative. So we usually also show our like work in progresses to the narrative team, get feedback on that, and then if everyone's happy, we proceed.
Thank you.
Awesome. Hi, Alena. My name's Tamarius, and I am an art lead currently transitioning to an art director role. And so I had a couple of questions for you. Based on the beginning of your presentation, in which you talked about the importance of like skill and like direction in the beginning. And so, two-part question. So was there close collaboration and communication between the narrative design and art teams to help establish that initial direction for the characters during the concept phase? And if so, how much of this communication helped inform a lot of the pipelines and tools that were really built and developed to like help create those characters?
I would say, actually, no, there wasn't much of a collaboration and direction front like between the teams. So usually narrative can give you some pointers, or in our case, at least, they give us pointers on what's the character, what's the mood of the character that we're making, what's roughly what they want to use for their needs. But they can't really help us with like technicalities, or they can't just say like, okay, well, this like we don't want the characters like they're too stylized or too realistic, right? So that's not really their realm. So it's mostly up to us, up to our team to figure this aspect out, and then we kind of show them, okay, that's what we can do for you, and then and only then they kind of give us feedback in terms of like, oh, okay, well, we need like an evil character or a good character, or this one's going to be controversial, and this one we're going to romance, and this type of thing. So they help us navigate, but they never really drive like the actual look. But of course, like let's say when we were making the origin characters, right, we would show them the direction of them. So we would show them, okay, well, that's what we have in mind. This type, the archetype we have in mind for this origin character, does it fit? And then they can say, oh, okay, that maybe maybe it's like too masculine for this character, right? Or maybe we want to like pivot it a little bit towards like an older character, stuff like that. But yeah, technical aspects, pipelines, etc. That's mostly up to us. And we make it with the view, because we have an experience of working on this type of games, that like, okay, narrative is going to change. They're going to make, you know, hundreds and hundreds of characters, and we need to be able to support them. So it's mostly like this.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Alena. My name's Ike. I'm an artist myself, and a real good designer as well, just like you, though mainly my forte lies more in 2D art. I've also dabbled in 3D. I'm more better with the environment rather than characters.
Mm-hmm.
So like, you work for Baldur's Gate. I know you're just an art lead, but this Baldur's Gate, it's become quite prominent. I read that it was it originated from Dungeons and Dragons, one of their story campaigns. I wanted to know, you and the other guys at Larian, what did you guys do to help get Baldur's Gate to where it is today? What made it so prominent, famous, successful? I know it originated from Dungeons and Dragons, but how did you make it come into its own?
Mm-hmm. The spirit of Dungeons and Dragons is important, right? So I think a lot of you guys played Dungeons and Dragons, and it was maybe within your friend group, maybe a few years back, and you all have a very unique idea of what it means. And during the production, for example, some people would give us feedback on the rule set and then say, oh, but when I played Dungeons & Dragons with my friends, my DM actually allowed it. And we were like, well, actually, if you look into the book, it's not allowed. So that's the essence of it, right? So we tried to follow not the books, but we tried to follow the spirit. So we tried to capture the essence of what do you feel when you play Dungeons and Dragons, right? And that's, I'd say, how we managed to achieve the unique look. We obviously were inspired by everything that Wizards of the Coast and Dungeons and Dragons created, but we also, focused on this, what's fun about it, you know? Same for gameplay and graphics, we tried to, capture this in the game. All right, guys, thank you so much.